To kick this backpacking 101 course off right, we're gonna start at the beginning, as one often does. And as with all manner of outdoor pursuits, the beginning just happens to be the 7 principles of Leave No Trace. To know them is to love them. To love them is to follow them. Now, if you've already spent a fair amount of time in the outdoors or amongst other outdoorsy folks, you're likely already familiar with Leave No Trace. But a refresher is never a bad thing. And if you've never heard of these so-called principles, well then you're in for a treat, because these 7 guidelines are the most important set of principles to keep in mind anytime you're enjoying the outdoors, especially when backpacking. They are guidelines to live by in order to help ensure that not only you, but everyone else out there can have a safe, sustainable, responsible, and a totally baller time outside. So let's dive into the 7 principles of Leave No Trace and break down how to adhere to them when enjoying any and all outdoor places and spaces. Shall we? Number 1 is plan ahead and prepare. The very first principle is first for a reason, as it often is, because you know the saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So true. But what does that mean when we're talking about backpacking? For starters, you plan by charting your route, checking the weather, researching water sources and campfire restrictions, calculating how many nights you'll be in the backcountry and how much food you'll need. Likewise, you'll need to plan how you'll cook, where you'll sleep, what you'll do with your trash, pack it out, obviously, and how you'll navigate. Once you have a detailed plan, you'll need to prepare for your excursion by packing the right layers, an appropriate amount of food and water, a first aid kit, and any tools unique to the destination or terrain. Because a well-planned trip means a safe and enjoyable trip for everyone, and one that leaves no trace that you were ever there to begin with. See what we did there? Leave no trace. If all that seemed like a lot of vague, overviewy nonsense, don't worry, we'll break down all of this in more detail in upcoming lessons. We got you. Number 2 is travel and camp on durable surfaces. This is the second principle of Leave No Trace, because your big old feet have real potential to trample everything and mess it all up. So this guideline admonishes you to stay on designated trails when hiking and backpacking. That means no cutting switchbacks. And when you camp, set up in designated campsites. Again, more on that in a later lesson, but for now, here's the concise version. Pitch your tent on durable surfaces like dirt, gravel, or a big old boulder if you can, and choose spots that have clearly already been used for camping if at all possible. How will you know if it's a designated campsite when you're in the backcountry? If there's a permanent fire ring present, that's a pretty good indicator that that's where you're supposed to pitch your tent. Now, when you're hiking, walk in a way that tramples the least amount of delicate underfoot foliage. That means no single file lines if you're hiking in a group of 2 or more. Why? You'll start to wear a path where there shouldn't be one. That's why. So if you're in a group and you're in true wilderness areas where there's no trail, spread out. Give each other space. If there is a trail, absolutely stay on it, especially if you're in an area with cryptobiotic crust or living soil, which is found mostly in the western states. One step on that stuff and you could completely destroy a delicate living ecosystem. If you're not sure if there's living soil where you're headed, then ask a park ranger or a guide from the area. Even if the ground is just flowers and grass, if you trample it, especially if the next hiker does too, and the hiker after that, and so on, it may never grow back, thus decimating the landscape for other living creatures that might depend on it. So watch where you put your feet, and remember, leave no trace. The next principle is dispose of waste properly. You heard me. If you packed it in, you pack it out. All of it. That obviously means trash like food wrappers, but also fruit and vegetable skins, peels, dropped trail mix, all of it. Because no, just because it's natural doesn't mean it's going to magically decompose overnight. In fact, food scraps, in addition to just being unsightly for other hikers, have dangerous potential to attract wildlife who could either get sick from eating said scraps or get too acclimated to people food and thus people and become aggressive. So pack out that apple core. But also your own excrement. Okay, all right. Granted, you don't always have to pack out your own poo, but you must if you're backpacking or hiking in a rocky river canyon or an area where you can't feasibly dig a cat hole, like in frozen tundra where the earth is just too hard to dig, or in an area composed of all boulders and rocks, like the desert. In these cases, you'll have to bring a thick, opaque bag or two with you and poo into those. Put TP in there also, please. You can buy these wag bags at outdoor stores built for that purpose, but dog waste bags work too, as do zip top bags covered in duct tape, because you really don't want to see through that stuff. If you're in the woods or places with diggable earth, then you can usually deposit your waste and toilet paper in a hole 6 to 8 inches deep. Just make sure you cover it up before you walk away. And ensure you dig that hole at least 200 feet away from natural water sources and campsites. Because not only is that gross, but it could contaminate the drinking water and make everyone else really sick. We'll put a link to a bonus video on how to poop in the woods below. As for toilet paper, don't even think about leaving it in the bushes or at the base of a tree. Even if you only went number 1 and didn't have to dig a hole. Nothing mucks up the beauty of nature more than little white squares littering the side of the trail or campsite. So pack it out, use leaves, or get yourself a reusable pea cloth. Whatever you do, don't forget your ultralight spade. And in case you were wondering, yes, this goes for your pet's waste too. Next up, leave what you find. We've all done it. Found a cool fossil, rock, flower, maybe even an old railroad spike or something, and taken it home with us. But when you're backpacking, make a point to leave it where you found it. Sure, it's cool, and there may even be a million of those fossils, rocks, flowers, railroad spikes. But if you take one, and the next person takes one, and the next person, well, there won't be any left for others to enjoy now, will there? Plus, native wildlife may need that stuff for food or nests, so you could be depriving them of sustenance or accessible housing, and you don't want to be that jerk, do you? So instead of taking it, pick it up, examine it, take a photo, make a sketch, do whatever the heck it is you do, but then set it back down and walk away. And let somebody else experience the same joy of discovery that you did. Next up is minimize campfire impacts, and this principle is a big one. Smokey Bear says, only you can prevent wildfires. But responsible fire building is about so much more than not burning down the forest. It's about minimizing impact too. So when you build a fire in the outdoors, do it so it doesn't leave a trace. For starters, always obey park rules. As in, if a ranger or park sign says you're not allowed to have a campfire, then don't have a campfire. Easy as. More and more destinations are implementing burn bans these days. So if you're west of the Mississippi, don't necessarily count on having a campfire every night. But if you are permitted to burn stuff, which is obviously super fun, keep it in the fire pit if there is one. Keep it small and contained, and if you'll be collecting wood, make sure you're only collecting dead and downed wood, as in wood you find on the ground that's fully dried out. To tell if it's dead, it should break, not bend, when pressure is applied. Bending indicates that it's still green or alive and won't make good firewood anyway. As for what size branches to use, they shouldn't be bigger around than an average person's wrist. Maybe slightly bigger than mine would be okay. I wouldn't call that average. These will not only be easier to snap in half, but smaller branches burn more completely to ash, reducing the chances that leftover hot coals will spontaneously combust after you depart or go to bed. It happens. If your site looks pretty barren of usable, burnable stuff, then take a walk to look for wood, especially if you're in a popular campsite area where downed wood may have been pretty well scavenged already. Whatever you do, never cut down or break off branches or trees in order to build a fire. Just don't do it, okay? As for the actual fire itself, build it on a durable surface so you won't damage the ground beneath the coals, clear the area of loose dry debris like sticks and leaves, and make sure there aren't any low branches hanging right over the fire. For more info, check out the fire building instructional video we shot, which we'll link to below. And don't ever leave your fire unattended. If you go to bed or leave camp for the day, douse that bad boy so thoroughly you can stick your hand on the soggy coals. Seriously. Next up is respect wildlife, as in keep your dang distance. I mean, think of it this way. How would you like it if you were in your natural habitat just trying to work and enjoy your coffee in Starbucks and some rando tourists kept inching closer and closer and closer as they tried to snap a selfie? I personally wouldn't care for it very much. I might even get angry enough to charge at them. Or I don't know, at least throw an ice cube or two for my cold brew? Well, that's how animals feel when people invade their space just so they can get a better look or take that envy-inducing selfie for Instagram. So stay back and give animals their space so you don't send them fleeing to the woods or sprinting toward you in rage while they're just trying to enjoy their breakfast. Stay 25 yards away from animals like deer, moose, and bison, and at least 100 yards from bears, mountain lions, and wolves, or you might get trampled. Even if you don't, you could be acclimatizing them to people, which is just as dangerous for them. And never feed animals. Any of them. Nope. Not even the cute little chipmunks or birds eyeing your blanket during a picnic. People food can kill animals. Maybe not right away, but it doesn't contain the nutrition they need. Their bodies may not be able to digest it, and they may have to be euthanized if they get too reliant on people food and develop aggressive behaviors. In short, a fed animal is a dead animal, so don't do it. Plus, it teaches them bad manners, and they go and annoy everybody else in the vicinity. I mean, seagulls, am I right? Now, that goes for accidental feedings too. The kind where you don't properly store your food in your car or a bear box when you're camping, or when you leave a bag of unattended chips on a picnic table and animals pilfer your supplies. That's a bummer for everyone involved, because now raccoons, or worse, bears, know the campground is a place they can get a free meal, and, well, you're missing 4 sandwiches. The final leave no trace principle is about people, because being considerate of other hikers is just as important as everything else. But what does that look like? Usually it means it's time to turn off your music, at least when others are within earshot, turn down your voice, unless you're in grizzly country, then wear your little lungs out, and offer the right of way to other hikers. Start by leaving your Bluetooth speaker at home. If you must have music when you hike, then use earbuds. Then, if conversing with other hikers, use your inside voice. Yep, even when outside. Some people are out here to observe wildlife or find a moment of peace and quiet, so don't be the one to ruin it for them. Finally, offer to yield the path to anyone hiking faster than you, coming from the opposite direction or going uphill. It's just polite. Now, we're not telling you how you need to enjoy the outdoors. The point is just to be considerate of the people around you and that they may not love your music as much as you do. And don't be afraid to say hello or offer advice for where to spot a rare flower or a colorful lizard when you cross paths with others. Outdoorsy folks often enjoy a chat as much as anybody. Think you can manage these 7 principles? We have faith in you. Remember that they're guidelines, not rules, for you rebels who hate rules, and following them creates a more beautiful, welcoming, sustainable environment for not only fellow outdoor enthusiasts, but the plants and animals who call the great outdoors home. Listen, nobody's perfect and we all mess up on these from time to time, but the point of the principles is to help us all do our best so we can enjoy public lands together and for a long time to come. So leave no trace when you head outside and wander on to the next lesson.